Okay, so now that we've kind of gone through the different types of questions that you can add, and there's a few more that we're going to talk about, I want to talk about the responses. And we've submitted the form a few times, and you've seen me submit it, and you've seen me go through and grade it, but I just want to touch base on it one more time. So we're using the form and the quizzes function, and so we get this kind of summary of data. Under our responses tab, a total number of responses. We can see an average. We can see frequently missed questions. And then we can see individual student scores here. When you scroll down, you're getting a summary of each question and percentages based on the class, which is nice. And this is what students would see if under the settings you said, give students a summary of data. They would get this kind of summary of data. In order to grade, and I know I talked about this before, but let's hit it again. In order to grade short answer questions using Google Forms, you have to go into each student and go down and award points for short response questions. So here you have to award points for the short response questions and read each student's feedback. So in this one, you would say the down arrow 0, and then you'll see as soon as you make a change, you get a save button. All right, so this can become tedious. It's similar to going through paper exams. You have to go through student by student. You can use a drop down like this and bounce between students, or you can arrow through to each response here. When you're done, you can print out the responses. You can also delete individual responses. Don't do that. And then you can release the score. And you can wait and release the score individually, or you can come back to the summary after you've done all of your grading. You'll see that student's score change because I clicked on it, and then you can release all of the scores. So that's your functionality from within Google Forms. The other piece of that is creating a spreadsheet. And I know most people are like, well, spreadsheet. But there are some things that you can do on the spreadsheet that'll make your grading easier for you. So when you click on this option, you get an option to I've already generated a spreadsheet for this. It'll say create a new spreadsheet. You say create. It's going to name it exit ticket responses. You also have an option to filter your responses into an already existing spreadsheet. You can do that too. That's totally cool. So what I have here is I have taken my form as an answer key, and I actually moved that up. So let me show you what that looks like. I came back to my form. I'm going to submit this one more time, and in the name field, I'm actually going to put this in as an answer key. So I always recommend this as a great way to store your responses, and I'm going to show you why, because you're going to be able to compare answers using the spreadsheet. So this is going to be in the answer key, and I'm going to, don't judge me, I'm just putting the answers in based on how I have programmed the sheet. And I believe these are all the correct answers. I can change them if I screw up. I can change the answers. Okay. So now when I submit this score on my form, this is going to tick up to 6. You see this 6? And then on my last student here, my answer key, I just took this. Remember, it's going in order. First to most recently submitted. I only got 8 points, and that's because I need to actually reward points for those these two questions. Okay, so I'm saying these are the correct answers, and now my answer key has gotten a 10 out of 10. 10 out of 10, awesome. So now in the spreadsheet, so I'm clicking just back to the spreadsheet tab, you'll see that I have this answer key, 10 out of 10, and then these are all the correct answers. What I'm going to do is I'm going to actually click on the number that has my answer key, the whole row, and I'm just going to drag it up to the top. And I want it to come up to the top because I want to basically lock my answer key into the top. You'll see I already have one in here because I did this before. but I want to lock it into the top row up here. So we're going to do some things. First things first. You see this column here? This email is being automatically collected. It doesn't have a header. In order to use the tool that we're going to use, which is called Flubaroo, to grade questions, you have to have a header on this. So give it a header. Email's fine. Okay, it just needs a title. The second trick, I like to lock or freeze my rows at the top so that I can see what's frozen up here. And if I scroll through answers, my answer key is always going to be on top. So what I'm going to do is, you don't even have to highlight. You're just going to hit View, Freeze, and I'm going to say 2 rows. And now if I scroll, you see how I'm scrolling? My answer key is stuck at the top, which I like. Then I want to highlight these. I'm going to actually make them stand out. So I highlight each one of these 2 rows, and I'm going to give them a fill because I like them to stand out. Now they're purple. Pretty awesome, right? The last thing I'm going to do is I got to scroll to the left, and I like to be able to see whose answers these are. See how I scroll, I don't see who it is. So I'm going to actually view, freeze 2 columns. And now when I scroll, I can still see the student's email. Pretty awesome. Okay. So that's what we got going on here. Now, we're going to use a tool called Flubaroo. And you can see I've already done this here. The way that Flubaroo works is it's basically taking whatever you say is the answer key. So I have an answer key up here. And it's comparing each one of the rows to the answer key. And it'll mark it right or wrong based on that. So a couple of things that I like to do in my spreadsheet is I like to be able to say from a look who got this right and who got this wrong. And a tool that'll work for those short answer questions that'll tell me that just by looking at it is called conditional formatting. So you can either right click on a column and go to the bottom and say conditional formatting, or you can say format conditional formatting. And this is going to be amazing. You ready for this? So because I have my column selected, do you see this? It's saying G1 through all the way down G. I'm actually going to change this to be G3 because that's where my first student response sits. G3. And I'm going to say format the cells if the text contains, and I'm going to give the answer, trade route. So if the text contains trade route, I want the color to be green because it's correct. And I'm going to, do you see this? So all of these answers are correct. I'm going to add another rule. I'm going to keep it the same range, and if the text does not contain trade route, I'm going to change it to red. Meaning that anytime a student answers that question and it doesn't say trade route, it's going to be red, and I'm going to know that question is wrong. Pretty awesome, huh? And click on H. I'm going to do the same thing. New rule. I'm going to change this to H3 just because I don't want my answer key highlighted. If the text contains, and I'm doing contains because I don't want it to do capitalization, but you could add multiple rules if you wanted. So I'm saying if the text contains Spanish, the answer is correct. And then I'm going to add another rule. And if the text does not contain Spanish, it's going to be angry red. And this one, you're going to see this because I've answered this question wrong twice. Do you see this? Wait for it. Awesome. So these 2 minus points right here. So awesome. You could do this for every single question so that when you look at your spreadsheet, you can get a quick glance. You could do it for this too. So same idea, add new rule. I'm going to go I3. I'm just going to do this last one and show you. Text is exactly D, capital D, and this one's not going to matter because it's multiple choice. So it's either going to be capital D or a different capital. I'm going to hit add another rule, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to hit red and then hit done. And look at that. Now I can see which answers are right and which answers are wrong. Pretty awesome. So that's conditional formatting. The last thing I need to do is if I scroll to the right, This last question, option 1, option 2, option 4, those are all correct answers. I want students to get a point for option 1, a point for option 2, and a point for option 4. So the question is worth 3 total points. They can get 3 points, they can get 2 points, or they can get 1 point. They will also get marked. They'll actually lose a point if they select option 3 at any point. So what I want to do is I want to tell Flubaroo, which is this tool that we're going to use to grade this, to mark this as a checkbox question. So the text that I'm going to put in, you can see it right here because I have it in here already, is percent CB. Percent CB lowercase space. And what it's telling it is that each one of these are a correct answer for this checkbox question. I will give you a list of Flubaroo codes to be able to put in, and I also have resources on those as well. All right, so now that we're all set to grade this checkbox question, we're ready to run it. So to run Flubaroo, you come up to add-ons, and you'll see I already have it installed on my add-ons menu. If you don't have it, you come down to the bottom, you say get add-ons. And then once this window loads, if you don't see it right in the beginning here, if you just search for Flubaroo, it'll come. And this is so I'm going to say grade assignment. For like each piece of the step. So like what is graded, what is the answer key, what are the point values, all of the things. So down the right hand side, it's just going through the columns from the spreadsheet. And so then you have to choose the options, make sure that any kind of information is identify students or skip grading, identify student. And so then my first question, normal grading, normal grading, normal grading. Now this is important. The checkbox question, the default is 1. I changed it to 3. I want them to get a point for each one. If you don't do it that way, it's going to only give them a third of a point for each one. So it's going to do a third, a third, a third. So if you're keeping it out of 1. So make sure that you adjust any checkbox questions or multiple answers to be accepted by changing the point value. And then click continue. It's going to ask you what the answer key is. So I have 2 of them, and I'm just going to go with today's, and then I'm going to click continue. And it's going to grade the assignment, and it's going to open up a new tab. And then once it says that your grades are done, it's going to give us like help tips and ideas. I'll give you some resources for all the Flubaroo options. I've gone over Flubaroo in other classes. I really wanted to highlight the new features of Google Forms in this particular class. But then, some of the drawbacks of those new features made me think that, showing how to run Flubaroo again is never a bad idea. Okay. So if I click the X on here, you'll see it. I have all of my students graded. The number of points that they received, their percentage, the number of times that they submitted, because it's important to see that, and then whether or not I've emailed the grade, and then their scores across the way here. So this Europeans wanted to find a trade route. That was something that was not automatically graded through Google Forms. Look, it's graded here. Christopher Columbus was a blank explorer. That's graded here. So and then this is your class total down here at the bottom. And then the last one here below is an image of the Columbia Exchange, and then the number of points that they get for each one of the options that they selected. So that's it. That's Flubaroo. So the nice thing about Flubaroo is it grades the questions that Google Forms isn't grading right now. but it's an additional thing that you have to run. To share your grades with students, you can email them grades. So when you're ready, you say add-ons, Flubaroo, share grades. It's going to open up a window. And this is why collecting that email address is so important, because the email address question is going to show up here and you can just say email, and then you don't have to worry about kids sitting in their email. I want to share them via email. I want them to see the questions and the scores, and I'm choosing to include the answer key. I wouldn't include that if you're emailing out grades before all of your sets have taken a quiz. And you click continue. And then it'll say 3 grades were successfully shared. So I'm just going to pull up my email. I just want you to see what the scores, an email from Flubaroo looks like compared to an email from Google Forms. And you saw the way that the Google Forms grades went through. When the students can view their score, they get an email with their release score, and then this is the alternative, which is through Flubaroo. So there's pros and cons to both. And it's really up to you which is the best way that's going to work for you. So if I click on here, here's your ticket. And it'll come from you. Mine's coming from me because it's all through the same account, which is fine. And then you'll see I got my score. I got a 7 out of 10. And then I can scroll through and we have this nice little color-coded options here. Correct, incorrect. And you'll see here. So, really cool. It's great. Great tool. And that's Flubaroo. So that's how Flubaroo and the responses work. There's other options for managing responses that we can get into kind of in a more advanced class and so forth. So enjoy.